Hey there, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to dive into a company that, in my opinion, has taken the knife community by storm, and that is Winterblade Co. They have 3 brand new models dropping on October 23rd. It is a live drop, so once they're gone until the next batch. We reviewed the Winterblade Empire not long ago, as well as the Winterblade Veyron, which I loved both of these for different reasons. And today we're going to be focusing on the new Winterblade Factor 8. If you happen to be considered buying one of these 3 knives and you don't know which one, stick around to the end and I'll tell you what I think about each. So like I said, this is the Winterblade Co. Factor 8, or should we say XL Factor, because it is an XL version of the original Factor, as you can see there. Let's get into it. First off, can we just talk about these aesthetics? This knife looks sick with its sleek lines and premium finishes. We have somewhat of a redesigned blade. This particular one has a stone-washed black DLC finish. So this is not going to only protect the blade from wear and tear, it's also going to pretty much make this blade impervious to corrosion, because this one's in CPM MagnaCut steel that is hardened from 61 to 63 HRC. I don't mind that, especially in a production knife. The OEM to the Factor 8 is Best Tech Knives. I think they've done all the factors that I know of, at least. So they definitely know what they're doing when it comes to this model. If you're not a fan of a black DLC finish, don't worry. They also have a stone wash finish that looks rather attractive as well. You don't have any jimping up top, but I didn't find it necessary, and we'll check that out in just a little while. You have a full forward finger choil that will also act as an oversized sharpening choil, so you should have a ton of sharpening life, probably the life of this blade, before it'll think about widening in the back right here. That tip right there is nice and lean. You can easily get it down onto a flat cutting surface and make some very fine precision cuts. So if you look at this edge right here, it's fairly straight to about right here, and then it kind of kicks up. There was an actual small transition right here, but after I finished all the testing, I did sharpen this up just to see how it sharpened up, and I ended up just doing away with that. But because of this kick up right here, it's going to make this blade even more versatile than it already is, because the edge sits below the handle. So in the pinch grip, you're going to be able to get that entire edge onto a flat cutting surface before it contacts the scales or your knuckles or your fingers or anything. And like I said, you can use that tip really easily. In-hand cuts are going to be great as well, because it's not that much of a belly up here in the front. It's a very gradual kick up. So whenever you do your normal slice motion cuts, you shouldn't have any problem sliding out of that. And just how big is the Factor 8? So it's coming in at 8.4 inches long, so I just call it a large knife. It has a 3.5-inch blade with a 3-inch cutting edge. You have a large blade hole, so it should be very easy to access on both sides of the handle. And we have a nice full flat grind that comes down nice and thin to around 18 thousandths behind the edge. So this thing should perform very well, and we're going to find out. So far, the first 2 Winterblade Co. knives I tested did fantastic. And what do you know? This one's very, very sharp out of box. I will say that you do need to probably have your finger in that forward finger choil, because you'll get hung up in whatever you're cutting if you're cutting in hand like this. Now, as long as I was up there, choked up, perfectly fine. Your edge is straight enough to where it's easy to do these type of cuts. That full flat grind is passing through the cardboard, very effortless. And it feels like it's got nice geometry. I haven't taken any of the measurements yet, but for the actual review I will. So I'm kind of worried because the little cutout where the flipper thing is bothered me on the original Factor. So I started out light, then I started increasing pressure. The more and more I did increase pressure, I did start to feel it. It wasn't terrible, but I did feel the 2 points on the bottom aluminum scales where the little cutout is. You'd see me kind of, I was wondering what was causing it. And it's just those little divots that they make a point at both ends. I don't know. I wish they would have been knocked down a little bit more, but I was able to adjust, and I was perfectly fine after that. This is where I got that smile on my face now, peeps. This thing is cutting this 1/2-inch sisal rope with minimal pressure. I mean, I'm barely pushing down. The edge that came on this thing is not only sharp, it's got a whole bunch of aggression to it. And I'm noticing right off the bat, the way that edge cants up right toward the end of the blade, that makes this type of cutting so easy. I got a lot of clearance because that edge already sits below the handle. So you can, in a pinch grip, you can get the entire blade's edge on the flat cutting surface. And the way it cants up like that, it makes it feel like it has more belly than it actually does, making this a breeze. I had a lot of fun testing all three models because they came sharp, and the way he's got the blade set up, it just makes for a much easier performer. After testing several blades now with those low edges that sit below the handle, man, that is a recipe for an outstanding versatile blade. And I think the next knife I design is going to have an edge that's sitting below that handle. Especially when it has just a little bit of belly, it makes it super versatile and still powerful. And of course, that you see me I did an extra one. That tip is like a little scalpel blade up there in the front, blasting through all this material. I did not notice a whole bunch of drag with the DLC finish. I have noticed it on some of them where it'll kind of create like a sticky friction feel, but this one did good and nothing really stood in his way thanks to that screaming sharp edge. So A++ for me and all of them. A++. Outstanding job, Winterblade and the OEMs. Now let's get into the meat of the matter, the action. The quad magnet detent system paired with the improved titanium flip lever. As you can see, it's scooped out right there, making it much more comfortable to actuate and easier to actuate. Those two things give this knife a flipping action that is absolutely absurd. Seriously, it's like the knife has a mind of its own. I can't fail it, and you can't help but to fidget with this knife. It'll definitely give your wife the stank eye. I know my wife kept looking at me like, you flip it one more time and I'll put it in your casket. And I'm about to make a bold statement about this one. I have a lot of knives that flip very, very hard and crisp. I have a Sherigorov F95 that has an amazing action. My Evo 3.0, amazing action. This Winterblade Co Factor 8, snappiest action in my collection, hands down. And that's all because of that quad detent system. Which, if it's too strong for you, you could take a magnet out if you want. It's one of the most adjustable knives that he makes. And if you like to fidget with your knives or you like a nice pop to your detent, then I think you're going to love this one. When I first got the knife, I put my finger right here and I'm used to my original Factor. And it's got great action. Don't get me wrong. Really nice. But it's a softer break to the magnet detent system. This one, I put my finger up here and I was like, wait, is this not supposed to make the knife flip? And then I was like, And I was like, what? Yeah. And the sound it makes, like it's like you're reloading a pew pew. And I'm pretty sure I remember him saying that instead of the flip lever being held into place by a magnet, I think it's held into place by a spring. All right, if you look down in there, you can see that coil spring, I think, right there. Sorry, it's so dirty. I've been carrying this one. So that is bringing the lever back, keeping it in place. As you can see there, there's your titanium lever. So on the original Factor, we had the M-Lock. It's a magnet-driven locking system, and I feel it's a very secure locking system. I felt safe using it. And now with the new Factor 8, we have the M-Lock Plus. This magnet-driven blade lock not only makes for a secure hold, but adds an element of innovation that you just don't see everywhere. Plus, disassembly, a breeze. All hardware's T8. Love seeing that. It has a captured pivot, another plus. He literally made the statement that this is the easiest to take apart. which if you're like me and like to maintain your own blades, then that's a really good thing. And the fact that he's okay with us maintaining our own blades is even better. Let's touch on the ergos. I probably talked about it during the testing. I found myself choked up in the forward finger trawl area just so I had more control, and that way I don't find myself getting hung up in that area when I'm doing in-hand cuts. Now, of course, whenever I was doing pinch grip cuts, I was kind of back a little bit, but that's just how I hold the knife. And for pretty much 90% of the cutting, it was more than comfortable because you got nice wide scales. Now, they're not the thickest. I think they're like 0.47 thick, so a little under average, but the width makes up for it. Just like on my original Factor, where the flip lever is, whenever I'm choked up right here and pushing really, really hard, I mean, exerting as much force as I can into something, then this portion gets a little uncomfortable. It wasn't terrible. I did not have to stop what I was doing to go put on gloves during the testing or anything. So you got to understand also that my hands are more beat up than the average person. Now, I did find myself landing on this point right here on the aluminum scales, but a quick adjustment and that went away. So it's going to depend on your hand size, and it's really going to depend on what you use your EDC knives for. If you're going to use this as a hard use beater knife, then you may start to feel that when you're really doing some heavy cutting. But for average day-to-day EDC tasks, would probably 98% of the people would be buying this for at this price. It's going to be a-okay. My scales are a very vibrant red color, and you can see milled lines all around the chamfers, and that definitely offers some grip, some traction, because it's a pretty rough feel. Now, not uncomfortable, but you want it to give you some traction because the rest of this is smooth aluminum that has a hard anodized coating on it, I think. It's 7075 aircraft grade aluminum, some really tough stuff, and light for its size, lighter than titanium. Then you roll it over. You have your titanium flip lever here, and I don't know, let's see. This, I think, may be a titanium gear backspacer. It's either titanium or aluminum, because I don't see any lines that would make me think that that's G10 or anything. It feels like it's titanium. And I would just guess because it'd probably have a discoloration between these two materials if it wasn't the same. And just like on the original Factor, you can see the two holes right here. It is tip up, left or right-handed carry. So he's thinking about the lefties, being that you can easily actuate and use this knife left-handed as well. Easily access the blade hole, and as a lefty, you just use your index finger to disengage that lock. But if you're not into aluminum, don't worry, he's got you covered. He also has variations with full titanium scales, but just remember that is going to increase the weight a good bit. Your pocket clip has a good amount of ramp there, so it should clear most pant seams, and you got decent tension to it, and you want that because this is smooth aluminum. It's not deep carry, but look how deep it sits in that pocket. Now, it is a wide knife, so it is going to take up a good bit of the pocket. Now, you don't have a flipper sticking out, so if you want to put your phone in there, you probably could fit it with this one because it does hug the side of the pocket really well, and I didn't really notice it moving around all that much. So like I said, the aluminum is lighter than the tie, but this is a pretty big knife and a wide knife. You do have, if you look in there, you do have a good bit of skeletonization on the aluminum scales on the top and on the bottom to help bring down the weight as much as possible. Now we're going to check out the weight, but if you are a knife reviewer and you showcase the weight on a knife, you may want to calibrate it every once in a while. My batteries were going low and I didn't realize it, and it was giving me all kinds of crazy weights. So mine came with a calibration weight that's 100 grams. So you put it on there and look, it's perfectly at 100 grams. Hopefully you can see that. Let's zoom in. Perfectly at 100 grams. Definitely something kind of important if somebody's relying on that weight that you're giving them. So let's see, first in grams, 137.2 grams or 4.8, we're going to call it 4.84 ounces. I found it to be comfortable in the pocket. Never did I think it was cumbersome at all. And the balance point is right there where that flip lever is, which isn't bad at all, being that you have sections removed and just all the stuff you got going on here. Now for some quick size comparisons, I'm pretty sure the Factor 8 is now the biggest model in Winterblade's lineup. It is bigger than the 7, which was already a nice size knife, and it dwarfs the regular Factor. And if you were wondering, it is bigger than the Veyron as well. Veyron's a little bit bigger than the 7. And lastly, the only 2 knives I could find that were pretty much identical would be the Chris Reeve Knives Zon and the ZTO 640. I lied, it's the same size as the Vivi Praxis as well. Now for my nitpicking complaints, like I said, minor discomfort here and the 2 points in the aluminum whenever I was really starting to bear down. It's going to depend on your hand size, where your hand lands. If it doesn't land on those 2 spots, it'll be fine. And like I said, it wasn't terrible. I didn't have to stop and go put gloves on or anything. And the next thing is something that Best Tech is just notorious for. I just don't understand why, but the edge bevel from factory was 28 degrees per side. That is very obtuse. And even though it performed well, that's because it was very sharp from factory, it could have performed a lot better. I have now reprofiled this edge to 20 degrees per side, and it definitely made the bevel a little bit bigger, but I don't find it to be, abnormally large or anything. One good thing is both sides were the exact same. You can see the bevel is the same on both sides, which is always a good thing, especially, when you go to reprofile it. You don't want a big old wide bevel on one side, skinny bevel on the other. So it's not the biggest deal because it's an easy fix. But at 28, 27, whatever, that in my opinion is way too thick for a knife edge. Luckily, it's nice and thin behind the edge. And even after I reprofiled it, it still remained nice and thin. So I can only imagine how this one's going to perform now that I lay that edge bevel back. So, if you're in the market for a nice and versatile, high quality knife with fantastic action, I can't recommend the Winterblade Co Factor enough. It's perfect for anyone looking for a top tier action and functionality. But hey, let me know in the comments which Winterblade model you're leaning toward. Is it the Factor 8, the Veyron, or the Empire? Like I said in the beginning, I'm going to give you the strengths of each one of these to try to help you make that decision, especially if you can only afford one. Best EDC, best performer, sliciest blade, dual action, or manual action. Factor 8, snappiest flipper by far, versatile knife, and that quad magnet detent system is unlike any action you've ever felt. And then the Veyron, the fidgetiest of the bunch, and the toughest of the bunch. And out of the 3, the one I carried most, and I didn't expect it, just by a little bit, would be the Veyron. For me, I carried the Veyron the most, then the Empire, and then the Factor 8. I think the only reason this one got carried a little bit less than these 2 is because I've already been used to carrying the original Factor, and it's just a very light, easy to carry EDC. This one's just a beefier knife. Nothing wrong with that. I still enjoy carrying it. That's just, I think, the only reason why these 2 got carried a little bit more than the Factor 8. Remember, no matter which one you choose, you're getting an exceptional knife that'll wow your knife bros, no doubt. All necessary links will be down in the description. Mark your calendars, October 23rd on the Winterblade Co site. For more details, go visit the site. Now, if you enjoyed this review, smash that like button so I know you're enjoying the content. Subscribe for more knife and gear content, and hit that bell notification so you're notified every time I upload a video, which is 7 days a week. And until next time, stay sharp, everyone. Smile more.